Thanks everyone for coming today. It's Matt Robinson. I'm the program manager for the ROS Industrial Consortium, helping out over here in the Americas. This is our April 2025 ROS Industrial Developers Meeting. So a few things we wanted to cover today is I'm just going to basically set the stage for a couple activities. And then I have asked David Spielman from our team to kind of share a few things that have been going on that are, so to speak, maybe of interest to developers. So one thing that we have been working on and we're going to be putting out for some community feedback is this notion of an updated roadmap, leveraging a little bit of like the modularity work we've been trying to bring to the ROS industrial ecosystem, and particularly around toolpath planning, calibration, industrial reconstruction, and some of the motion planning framework tools. So, obviously we're still very interested in capability, but thinking too along the lines of resources and ease of use. And one of the key features is this idea of getting to what we are referring to as 1.0 releases. So neother has been on that glide path for a while. Tesseract is also preparing for a 1.0 release, so it seemed to make sense. So these are sort of like notional timelines when these sorts of things would happen. And we're going to be having a big workshop on this when we have our ROS Industrial Consortium annual meeting in May of 2025 in Detroit, Michigan. So hopefully we'll get some folks throwing sticky notes and where improvement can be made or things can be spelled out more clearly. And we're having some refined versions of this. Hopefully will be out for comment. I'll be creating a blog post around it in advance as well. So there'll be more information coming out of this. So we look forward to people taking the time to comment. That being said, I wanted to raise a few of the events that are up and coming. And so here we are at the developers meeting, our friends. And then, of course, later this week, even, we'll do the Tesseract monthly check-in. So that's the second Thursday of the month. There's a regular get-together if you want to learn more about Tesseract. That's actually, you can find information about that at rosindustrial.org under developers. And there's a Tesseract robotics page. And that takes you to where you can find at the bottom the registration for the monthly meeting. So you have that information if you're interested in checking that out. And then, as I noted, our consortium annual get-together is in Detroit, co-located with Automate 2025 here in Huntington Place. I say here because I'm actually in Detroit at the moment for another conference at Huntington Place. But here's the agenda, right? So we'll be doing a dinner before, and then of course the agenda. And we'll have a number of folks coming to share what they're working on, including our friends at Picnic, Kat Scott with Intrinsic, as well as the ARM Institute, who are big collaborators. Fanuc is going to be sharing some work on their ROS2 driver. PushCorp is doing a lot of updating, and one of our research collaborators, Tech de Monterrey, sharing kind of what's going on in robotics in Mexico. And then, of course, we'll close out the afternoon with a lot of this workshop work. So we can make sure we're getting people's feedback and working on the things that are of most interest to the community. So that's kind of like a high-level view of kind of what's going to take place at the ROS Industrial Annual Meeting in May. Registration is open. It is included in membership for those who are members, but non-members can register. There's just a nominal fee, right, to kind of cover food and the venue. So anyways, if you're in the Detroit region or interested in coming up, we look forward to having folks there to participate, learn from each other, network, and of course, let's just build up ROS Industrial to be strong for the future and moving forward, right? And a valuable resource to those looking to solve industrial challenges with ROS and ROS2 and open source tools. So that's my spiel. So David, the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm David Spielman. I'm an engineer at Southwest Research Institute. Today, I'm going to just quickly go over some of the modifications and updates we've made to neother and scan and plan. These are some tools and updates that'll hopefully make using these tools easier and will improve your use of them in whatever projects that you're using them for. So just going through commits, the first thing that I wanted to show is our work in progress documentation page. So if you go on the neother repo under ROS Industrial, over here you'll see this GitHub Pages link to the documentation, and it's also linked down here in the README. And when you click on this, it will bring you to our GitHub pages that hosts the Doxygen page for neother. And so this is a work in progress documentation page. It's part of the effort that we're trying to do with some of our ROS Industrial repos is to add more documentation to them to make them more user-friendly and for others to incorporate them more easily into their projects. And so we have some main concepts defined here, kind of like the overarching themes that will help you understand neother. There's a getting started page, basically how to build it, and a little overview of the GUI, and also some helpful tips if you run into some issues trying to get started. There's this customization tab, which gives a brief overview of the GUI plugins and how they work in neother. There's also a page that's coming soon, how to create your own neother GUI plugin. So this is in the works. It'll basically be more or less a step-by-step guide on how to create your own plugin for neother to be able to create your own custom toolpaths. Under additional resources, we have a link to a repo from ROSCON 2024 that Michael Ripperger hosted and made. And so you could check that out at the links here. And then we also have an overview of all the classes and some documentation and description about what each of those classes do. So this is a work in progress. We're eventually hoping to flesh this out even more, and we're always looking for feedback and suggestions and contributions from the community. Moving on to some other improvements. Some of these improvements are quality of life related, so they're quite small, but they do help the workflow. For example, when saving a toolpath planner config file, we're now appending a YAML extension to the file just so that it can show up in the file dialog when you save that file. Before it wouldn't, because it was using a filter to filter out only show files that have a .yaml extension, so that'll help with that. We've updated the plane projection modifier, and this is to make sure that all of the normals are aligned with the average normal of the plane that is fit to the mesh. And so this will help. This helps in other planners, for example, the boundary edge planner, where we found some cases where the normals weren't aligned and we got some strange sort of unaligned toolpaths that caused for some motion planning errors. One of the other features that I wanted to highlight here quickly is in the neother GUI. So we've added a action here to save your modified meshes. And so basically this is a debug tool that should be helpful. Right here, just as an example, I currently have a mesh loaded in with the plane projection modifier, the filled holes modifier, and the normal from mesh faces modifier. And I'm using these modifiers just so that you can see this sort of a mesh that is a intermediate mesh that is different from the input mesh. And so the mesh in red is an intermediate mesh that we're going to be saving off here. And these toolpaths were just generated just to have them there, just so that we can create this red mesh. So if I go over here, now there's a button to save modified meshes. Also, if you go into the File tab, there's a Save Modified Meshes action here, and there's a shortcut. You can do Control-D to save modified meshes. But basically, if you wanted to save that mesh, you can type in the name of the mesh and save it off wherever you need, and then open it for later viewing. Okay. Now I'm just going to hop over to Scan and Plan Workshop just to go over a few things that we've added there. So something that we added to the Scan and Plan behavior tree is that we're preventing a rescan after a toolpath fails to load. Previously, in the previous pipeline, whenever a toolpath fails to load or failed to be generated, the behavior tree would kick you back to rescan the workspace, even if you had an existing scan. And so here we've modified the logic so that if a toolpath fails to load, fails to be generated, it will kick you back to ask you to just regenerate the toolpath. So this should help with that sort of annoyance and that time that you would spend rescanning when you already have a scan. Another big update that we have is that we've upgraded to Tesseract version 0.29. And so there's a few updates here. We've updated the info return values and colors. We've modified some task library dependencies, updated task composer key names. We've added a Descartes solver profile, added comments to the profile additions, and also removed the console bridge logs in task composer tasks. And so I won't be going over these changes too in depth, but you can definitely, if you have questions about that, ask during Thursday's Tesseract meeting. We've also added printing of nested exceptions from the toolpath planner widget for better error reporting. So this is an update that we've also done in Scan and Plan for better error reporting. We have a lot of nested exceptions in Nether, and so being able to print them out to the user in a more efficient and clear way definitely helps the user. So we've been making an effort to do that. And then finally, we've also added convex hull decomposition for scan mesh. So we've added a few parameters related to creating convex hull for the scan to improve the collision geometry of the mesh after it's scanned. And so that's about it for the updates that I wanted to share. If anyone has any questions, feel free to let me know.
Thanks, David. And then I guess, David, you don't know, but you're not going to know this right offhand, right? But I have a little bit of a clue, right? So I mentioned the ROS Industrial Annual Meeting. PushCorp is going to be sharing a little bit of like their ideas. You'll notice that we spend a lot of time working with grinding applications, or basically a lot of interaction with PushCorp hardware and tools. And we've been working closely with them and via some of the recent work we've been doing, collaborating with some other groups that are like industry aligned. We've had the opportunity to make a lot of improvements to using PushCorp hardware a little bit more to its full capability in a ROS context, right? And so one of the things David's done recently is separating the spindle from the AFD on the PushCorp hardware, and PushCorp hopefully will be sharing a little bit more about that when they speak at the ROS Industrial Annual Meeting, right? So it'll be interesting. They're very open to, if you have considered for your industrial applications PushCorp hardware, they would be open to kind of hearing what it is that you're trying to do and what sort of things you need exposed relative to executing the processes and tasks you're wanting to do. In our case, it's been grinding on castings more recently, but we've done all kinds of things around sanding. And of course, the spindle is broadly capable to do other sorts of things as well, depending on the tech domain of your industry. So because that's another good crossover with the annual meeting and the chance to actually ask questions face to face with some of the folks that are supporting this broader capability. So just keep that in mind. Every now and then, all these things tie together. And David, thank you for plugging the Tesseract monthly update. If, as David alluded to, if you really want to get in the weeds in Tesseract, we have that monthly update. I should note, though, this particular Tesseract monthly update is going to be a presentation by John Wasson. If you haven't heard that name, he's been a significant collaborator on Tesseract, providing Python bindings, for instance, and supporting an interoperability hardware interfacing utility called Robot Rocketeer. So he's going to be sharing a lot of the work where he's developed a lot of synergies between his tool sets that he's built some Robot Rocketeer from scratch, and how it actually enables like a little bit cleaner pathway to take advantage of Tesseract in certain use cases. So that is on April 10th. I believe it's at 9:30 a.m. Central Time. So if you're not doing developer meetings or Tesseract monthly check-in meetings, this one might be an okay one to check out. So that's about all we got. So, David, thank you for sharing your update. We can go open forum. Does anyone here on the call right now have any questions or comments?
Just a quick question on what David just presented. Nether looked like it's part of the old scan and plan. Is that separate now? Is that two different things, or they both work together?
Mhm. So, yeah, neother has always been a standalone tool set. So, it actually was born out in the kind of original implementation of scan and plan back when it was called Godel. And we're throwing some way back terms now. So, 2017, there was a scan and plan project. I've been collaborated with a couple different entities. My former company, Caterpillar, I know Spirit Aerosystems had been involved in prior iterations.
Mm-hmm.
That framework was called Godel at the time.
Okay.
Nether was actually born in parallel and came out, and we started migrating a lot of the raster-based toolpath planning to Nether and created as more of a plugin framework to make it more modular. So what happened was is Godel kept getting bigger and bigger, and it got hard just to like restructure it when we wanted to do something new. So hence we've sort of been over time migrating this notion of modularity. And hence you may not have been here, Michael, but I can reshare my screen. I think I still have the slide up. So we've been thinking a lot about, hey, getting to the point where we can create, regardless if it's scan and plan or another type of application, if you have toolpath planning and you need motion planning, that's Tesseract, or Move It, right? You have those modules and you can bring them together and then provide framework examples of application code that like gets down simply into the hundreds, from thousands to hundreds lines of code. I think we're getting to the point where Scan and Plan Workshop is a good example of that. And that there is a module, but it was born out of the prior scan and plan work. It's just in this effort to like start thinking a little bit more about modular pieces, because what you want to do for your end users, your community, your factory might be a little different than what we've already built.
Mm-hmm.
So giving you like the Lego blocks and then good starting points is from these example applications to mold it into something you want without having to do a ton of from scratch coding. That's what we're shooting for.
Okay.
Right. So hence you're hearing us talk about these modules. So yes, Nether, it specifically was born out of the original scan and plan, but migrated towards this framework for toolpath planning where specific toolpath planners are plugins. And that's kind of where we've landed.
Okay. So I got a future application where I'm probably going to be using scan and plan. I just need that. I don't need Nether to just scan and plan would do the whole job for me, right? Or do I need both?
Well, I imagine, you're going to scan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the plan is typically toolpath planning is a part of that.
Right.
It can be included in Nether. And that's how Scan and Plan
Okay.
Workshop is set up today, right? So Nether would be a dependency. Is that fair to say,
Okay.
David, since I have you online still?
Yes, that's right.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I need to clarify that. Like I said, I have a plan to use it later this year. I do plan. I've got two robots back to back, and so I'm probably going to run it on both of them and try to overlap. From both of them are looking at the same part from different sides.
Okay. I guess you're based in Wichita, correct, Michael?
Correct.
Yeah, we're coming up in July. I think we're targeting to host a Ross Industrial training.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll make sure we keep you in the loop on that, just so if we have a couple experienced developers there, if you have any questions, want to have a sidebar conversation on getting set up, we're
Sounds great.
happy to help you through that process.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks.
Yeah, and obviously you can always email and we can always set up a specific call if that timing doesn't work out. No, it's great to hear. We're excited to hear about, share if you run into bumps in the road and stuff, please submit issues. You can always contact us directly.
Yeah, I gotta get the robots moving first.
Yeah, behaving robots. That's always,
Uh-huh. ROS-2 integration on a KUKA KMR.
ooh.
Yeah.
The good news is though, there is so to speak, air quotes, you can't see me, but there is a officially supported KUKA interface for ROS2. I'll have to double
For the
check.
EWA, I haven't found anything for the KMR.
Yeah, I believe KMR is supported.
Okay. That's what I
I'll have
found.
I don't want to poke around here on the fly.
Yeah, if you guys come up with something, please forward it on. 'Cause I found something for there's some university developed something for Eloquent, I think, was the latest, and I'm using Humble. Eloquent or Foxy was the latest, so I had to
Ouch.
upgrade it to Humble. I got it to start moving, but it dies right away. It doesn't stay moving. I'm trying to figure that out.
I was never. It's confusing, right?
Hmm.
So Kuka has allowed a group in Hungary, right? So it's their team found it. I have actually have it flagged. For KRC4, KRC5, Sunrise, and IQKA controllers. They call it the unofficial official out of Kuka, Hungary. So I will just forward it to you.
Sounds good. I'll look it over. Thanks.
I'll just drop. I'll drop the your email address isn't auto-populating. So
Michael, just sent to my spirit, michael.e.westcott
yes,
at
I'll also drop it here
spiritarrow.com.
in the chat.
Okay.
Well, because we were recording and then I'm going to publish this publicly, maybe
Sure. Sure.
you may not want your
Gotcha.
email address on on YouTube. So they're also in the chat.
Okay.
And then I'll forward you the email with Heish explaining all the particulars. But
Okay.
awesome. Well, that's great to hear, Michael. We're excited to hear other folks like looking to experiment with the utilities out there. So, all right. Well, that's our developers meeting for today. There's no other questions or comments. We're happy to adjourn a little earlier, give you some time back in your day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks,
Thank
David.
you. Take care.
Thanks for coming, y'all.